Today our talk is on worthiness. And so one of the things I like to do, because a lot of times we we think we understand the meaning of a word, but we don't truly understand the context of it. And so I like to define words, especially when we kind of give a subject to them and kind of just kind of talk about certain words. Now, worthiness is defined as the quality of being good enough, right? Suitability, the quality of deserving attention or respect. And I really wanted to share this with everybody today because I think one of the most pressing issues of our time right now is the worthiness issue with people. That's why people find it within themselves to struggle a lot in life, and they're looking for sources of power or significance or attention. And so what they do is they oftentimes they will reach out and harm other people. They do this because they're not feeling worthy enough, and in order to make themselves feel good, what they do is they tear other people down. We've heard it. You can either build your building bigger or you can tear other people's buildings down. And worthiness is something that causes people to tear other people down when they're not feeling worthy. So a lot of times we see that, and it's kind of become almost a sickness or a condition in society because of the way everything is portrayed online, whether it be media or advertising, fashion. Everything like that is always about creating this idea of worthiness. But what happens is when we focus so much on the external, and we focus on the clothes that we wear or the people that we know or the amount of money that we make or the car that we drive, that's a false sense of worthiness. That's not really showing that you're worthy. It's showing that you have the ability to create some money, or buy some things, or buy some knockoffs or whatever to make yourself look a certain way. But ultimately, what it's not addressing is the true worthiness of the person inside. And I used to make fun of this a lot with some of my trainings and whatnot, because, like I said, a lot of media, social media, a lot of, print and advertising has caused us to feel like we need to portray a certain thing in our lives, that we're better than other people, or that we are doing better than we really are. So many people are afraid to just be honest about where they are in their lives, which is something that I've recently come into and really have prided myself on over the last several years, and most recently the last 8 months, of just really being honest with people about where I am and what's going on in my life. And so, one of the things that I would joke about with people is that, you'd look on Facebook and you see these perfect, families or perfect couples, or somebody takes a picture of a sunset with a glass of wine. But the truth of it is that, they're at home sitting in front of a painting of a sunset, holding a glass of wine in a plastic cup from a box wine, right? But they're portraying this idea that they live the most amazing lives. And, it's something that I think has reached a head, meaning that I think it's reached its point where it's going to start to really become inauthentic when people share that perfection of their lives. Now, I'm not talking about, having people sit there and vent and complain all day online or social media, because I think that's the almost the very similar to a feeling a lack of worthiness in your life, where you feel like you need to get attention by being the victim. But what I'm talking about here is wanting you to be able to help you cultivate worthiness within. And I was listening to a video last night while I was waiting for everything to settle down at the house, and so that Christine and I could just kind of settle in and spend some quality time together. We like, binging on Netflix series sometimes from, just the past, and we kind of go through and we look for fun things to watch. And in the meantime, I was watching Matt Kahn, and he's a really wonderful person who just really knows how to express and communicate certain things that a lot of people are going through in their lives, whether it be spiritually, emotionally, all these different ways that we try to express ourselves or go through things in our lives. And the title of this video was called "You Are the Way." And he jumped right in with worthiness. And he said that, we don't realize how much of an issue we have with worthiness, because we're always out there trying to please people. And he goes, but when you're out there pleasing people, you're actually creating yourself to be not worthy or unworthy, right? Because when you're saying yes to somebody else, and this is something I've heard Christina share on some of our Living to Be Fit program videos, is that, when you're saying yes to somebody else's needs and wants and desires over your own, you're actually saying no to yourself. And what happens is when you say no to yourself enough, you create feelings of unworthiness. And so you lack the ability to feel worthy. And I think this is really prevalent in parenting, because when you have a child and you're having to constantly say no to yourself so that you can always be meeting their needs, I think what happens is a lot of us create and cultivate this lack of worthiness in our lives because we're always saying yes. And so what happens is that we end up now carrying that over into our life experiences, whether it be in our relationship with our spouses or whether it be in our jobs, and we start to say yes to things outside of ourselves rather than saying yes to ourselves inside and doing the things that we need to do to cultivate that worthiness within. Because that's where true worthiness comes. The only place that you will ever feel worthy is within. And if you can do that, what happens is it begins to shine outwards. It's kind of like your body, your life becomes like a magnifying glass. When you can feel worthy inside, when you can start saying yes to yourself, you start to shine outwardly in such a bright way that people start to notice you. And that's one of the definitions: the quality of deserving attention or respect. You see, there's two ways to get attention. There's one way that's the victim way, where you talk about how bad your life is, or you complain about things and you focus on that story of your life. And then the other way is that you actually can just shine your light, and you can get attention that way by being the best person, by choosing kindness, by being loving and compassionate with people that are going through struggles. And it's something that I've kind of just really come into over the last several months, because I grew up in that typical place that a lot of men grow up in, where it's like, men are, don't cry or you're weak, or you've got to be strong and you've got to show no emotion and you've got to be all this macho. And what I realize is that in doing that and being taught that when growing up, what happens is I began to become less compassionate for other people, or I began to almost judge them, or become cold and emotionless. It drive me crazy when my wife would look at me years ago, and sometimes even recently, and go, you're so emotionally void, right? And I thinking, no, I'm not. And now that I can look back honestly and look at that, and I can go, oh my gosh, yeah, I was emotionally void. I lacked emotion because I had always been taught to protect my emotions so that I didn't show them, so that I didn't appear weak. And so through that process, what happened is even though I was like, standing there so stoically as a man and going, I'm strong and I can do all these things, what was going on is unconsciously I was becoming unworthy, and I was creating that in my life. And so then when things start to happen and things begin to show up in your life where you're feeling unworthy, and all of a sudden it starts to kind of like a domino. All of a sudden everything starts to fall apart. Your relationships, your business, your friends, your everything starts to fall apart. And what you realize is that all those things fell apart because of that. Your lack of worthiness wasn't able to hold up, or wasn't the foundation of your life. And so you weren't able to sustain those types of things in your life. And so worthiness is one of those big things for me, where it's like, you really got to cultivate the relationship with yourself. And the only way to do that is to be with yourself and not be externally stimulated. Like just before this call, I sat and meditated for an hour, and I just sit with myself. And sometimes my eyes are open, sometimes they're closed, sometimes I'm focused on certain things. Other times, and most of the time, I'm just letting my thoughts run, because I'm witnessing what's going on in my head. I'm sitting there going, oh, you've got things to do today. It's Monday, this, that, all these little voices in my head trying to control and get me to do something rather than just be with myself. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of society. That's why a lot of kids are ADD, is because they don't have the ability to just be with themselves, because they're constantly being stimulated by social media, phones. I mean, I've never seen so many kids at the age of 8, 9, and 10 having cell phones and taking them to elementary school. and parents actually thinking, well, they need that in case there's an emergency. And I'm thinking, my gosh, we survived hundreds of thousands of years, or not hundreds of thousands of years, but hundreds of years, most recently, without cell phones. Like, my son will text me because he's a teenager, so he does have a phone, but he'll text me at school and be like, yeah, I'm bored, nothing's going on in my classes today, Dad, can you just come pick me up? And I'm thinking, no, like, you need to be there and just be with your boredom and be okay with that, because that's going to help him cultivate worthiness in his own life. And because I told him, I said, it's fascinating that you think that I'm at your beck and call, that you can just text me and I'm like an Uber driver and I can come pick you up. I said, that's not what I gave you the phone for. I gave you the phone in case of emergency or you needed something that was really important, and not to just say, hey, I'm bored, come pick me up. And he goes, well, times have changed. I said, well, yeah, but they may have changed, but it doesn't mean that you get to be this, like, entitled child that is bored with school and gets to call his dad and say, hey, come pick me up. And so I said, that's something that, we're having to relearn in relationships with our kids and with friends and family, is that this idea of being connected has created unworthiness in our lives, right? Follow me here. Because as you're more and more connected through social media, through Skype, through, FaceTime, through Messenger, through all of these different ways that we connect with people, in that process, you're saying no to yourself. You're saying no to your alone time. You're saying no to being able to say, you know what, I don't want to talk to somebody right now. I mean, think about that alone. How many of us feel absolutely guilty when somebody calls us and we don't pick up the phone, right? It's an epidemic, because we think, oh my gosh, what's this person going to think if I don't pick up? Because we all know we're all connected. But lately, what I've been doing is stepping away from my phone, leaving it in my office and going for a walk for 30 minutes with my wife, and really just kind of letting go of this idea that I need to be on call 24/7, because that creates a feeling of unworthiness. Because it's like, what am I not worthy of being able to take time to myself? And so this is one of the things that I love about the Living to Be Fit program, because when we put this together, Christina and I, one of the things was about bringing about awareness in our lives. And one of those key pieces for people that I think, as they go through this process, and I can see it in people, like the people that are getting the results, and probably the most identifiable one for me is Alexis, because seeing where she's come from with her before pictures and where she's at with her after pictures, there is a huge increase in her worthiness in her life. She called me yesterday just to say thank you for basically avoiding her for 11 days. And it was kind of a really cool experience, because, she had reached out and she's like, I really need some support. I need some mentorship. I need this, but I know how strong she is. And I know how amazing she is. And so what I said to her, I said, listen, if you want that from me, if you want to be able to connect with me every single day, I need you to sit for 11 days, right? Because that's the whole caterpillar and butterfly analogy. The caterpillar goes into its cocoon for 11 days and it emerges a butterfly. And so what I like to do with certain people, once I feel that strength within them, is that, say, hey, listen, you know what, go for 11 days and sit with yourself for an hour and then reach out to me and let me know how that goes. And she was just calling me to thank me. And that's just a clear sign to me that she got a really important message and a lesson in her life. Because ultimately, you can reach out to people. I believe support, we're built for human connection, or we're human, so we're built for connection. But I also believe that we're built to go within, and that ultimately, if you need anything in your life to build something, to resolve something, to become something, then that is about you going within. It's not about you leaning on somebody else. Yes, there are times to lean on other people, but most importantly, there's a time to lean within, right? I've had calls about leaning out and leaning in and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to cultivate worthiness, which is what this call is about, then you have to go within. You have to be able to sit with yourself. And if you can't do it, if you can't sit with yourself for 30 minutes or an hour a day after, practicing it a little bit, because I know sometimes it can be difficult, then see that as a sign. And this is just an opportunity to see something here. See that as a sign that maybe you're lacking in the area of worthiness. Maybe you have too much unworthiness going on in your life, because if you can't just value the time with yourself, and just be with yourself for an hour with no interruptions, no cell phone, no texting, no calling, no music, no nothing, and just be with yourself, then chances are you lack a certain worthiness in your life. And that's the key part here. You know, it's kind of an underlying thing with the Living to Be Fit program, because, you know, people go through the program thinking it's about, losing weight and all this good stuff. And it is. But ultimately, it's about dealing with core things. And one of those is worthiness. And when you go through the program and you go through that 90-day process, you experience this worthiness because you realize that, wow, you know what? My life is dictated by my choices. My life is worthy of putting the right stuff in my body and having the amazing results of my life. Because if you look at before and after pictures of people, you will see a glow in those people's eyes. And that's why I really encourage people that are out there sharing the opportunity, sharing the Living to Be Fit program with people, is just to share your heart with people and let people know, hey, listen, this is what it's about, man. It's about cultivating something within that you become the ultimate resource in your life, and you can achieve anything that you want to achieve when it comes to your health and vitality. And then that secret, kind of Trojan horse thing is that once you do that, you realize that you're able to actually become the resource in your health and wellness, and you're able to, release the weight and permanently let it go. Then all of a sudden it starts to shine in other areas of your life. Then you start to see an enhancement in your relationships. You see an enhancement in your parenting. You see an enhancement in your business because you're willing to cultivate that worthiness in your life. And that's powerful, because if you're not experiencing something, if you don't have happiness, if you don't have success, if you don't have relationships, if you don't have love, or all these different things, a lot of it boils down to your worthiness. And so if you want to cultivate that, then, do the program, right? Do the Living to Be Fit 90-day program. I know it sounds weird to say that if you want to create worthiness in your life, but there is a way that it happens, and it's really fascinating to watch it happen. But if you're just somebody who wants to cultivate this, you've been through the program and you're still wanting to go deeper, because this is what happens. When you start to realize that you are worth it, right? And I believe that everybody is. If you're looking at this program and you want to achieve some results in your life and you're not feeling like you can afford it, or that that you'll make it through, that right there is a sign of unworthiness. And I'm here to tell you that the reason that people show up, the people that listen to these calls, the people that watch these videos, the reason is you're being called to look within and see that value within yourself and say, you know what, I am worth it. I mean, it's $299 to go through a process for 90 days and cultivate something within you that's going to last a lifetime. Okay. Most people will spend, $400 or more, going to Starbucks every day of the month, and then they will putting actually something good into their bodies to create worthiness. But like I said, every time you have to reach for something externally to give yourself that feeling of worthiness, that means that you're lacking it. And it's a really tricky thing, but it's totally okay. Like totally okay that you may be feeling unworthy in this moment, that you may be feeling unworthy in your life. There's a solution. The solution is going within. So wrap that around your thought process this week as you go into your week here, because we're just getting started out. This is the Monday inspiration call. And, I am so excited to help shine this light on people, to be able to help them create these feelings of worthiness so that they can go out there and start shining their light for other people. That's what's needed right now. There's a lot of things going on in society and everything else that you look at. You watch all these, really powerful people, and, you learn certain things about them, or you hear certain things, and it's really unfortunate, but a lot of that comes from a lack of worthiness, a true worthiness. Not, hey, I'm successful and I make millions of dollars and I drive the most amazing cars and I work with the most amazing people. That's a worth, right? But I'm talking about worthiness, about within, about feeling good about yourself so that you can stand there in the face of judgment of other people and know that you did the right thing, that you followed your heart in something, and that you decided to do something that may have been against the societal norm, but ultimately it was the right decision for you. And that takes courage. That takes the ability to see your own self-value and your self-worth And if you're not able to do that, then that means that you're lacking in it. And it's okay. Like I said, it's totally okay. All you got to do is bring awareness to it, like we teach in Living to Be Fit, and start to work on it. And the best way that you can work on it, and I'm going to leave you with this, is to start out really small. Okay. Start out with 5 minutes a day of just sitting with yourself and doing nothing and just watch what comes up. And if that's easy, then jump it to 10. And every time you finish that certain segment of time, double it until you get to an hour. So you go from 5 to 10 minutes, 10 minutes to 20 minutes, 20 minutes to 40 minutes, and then 40 minutes to an hour. And then, watch how things begin to shift and change in your life as you start to cultivate this worthiness. And again, if you're just joining the call, you're just watching the video, remember, it's that when you're saying no to yourself and you're saying yes to everything else, meaning all the stimulus, all the phone calls, the text messages, the messengers, the Snapchats, the Instagrams, you're saying no to yourself. And saying no to yourself that much and that long and for so many hours a day, you end up cultivating a feeling of unworthiness. And so we're shifting that by saying, you know what, you're worth it. You're worth spending time with yourself. That's only going to help you create something more amazing in your life. I guarantee you this, technology has not made it easier. Technology has not made it so much that everybody can become successful online. What technology has done is it's created a new challenge for us. And that new challenge right now is about cultivating your own self-worth. And the way that you can do that is to push yourself away from it for at least an hour a day and build yourself up to that. So go out and do that, create some amazing changes in your life. And thank you so much for joining us today. This is Calvin Starr, and I'm living to be inspired, worthy, unleashed, timeless, and fit. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.